Acting Deputy President. There's been a lot of words thrown around this chamber in the last couple of speeches and through the debate we've had, not just today, but also over the last couple of days and the weeks ahead. Confected outrage. Labor's been accused of confecting outrage over the deaths of vulnerable Australians. Cheap politics. Labor's been accused of using cheap politics. Well, there's nothing cheap about the lives of vulnerable Australians. And when the minister today was given an opportunity to explain himself, he referred to the motion in this Senate as tragic. Well, it is tragic that vulnerable Australians relied on this minister and relied on this government to take care of them during this outbreak. Because we know that there were warnings. We know that the government received a report entitled Neglect. We know that there were warnings of outbreaks and what outbreaks would do in an aged care facility and with older Australians. But still, this government and this minister didn't have a plan. They didn't have a plan, and now they're trying to shift blame, shift responsibility, direct focus away from where it should be. Where it should be is on this minister, his job, and he should be resigning. Under this government's watch, 450 aged care residents have died, and there are currently 890 active cases in residential aged care. These aren't just numbers. This isn't a debate about just numbers. These are real people, family members, elderly residents, our most vulnerable Australians who are dying without their families by their side because this government failed to develop a plan for the aged care sector. The lack of a plan has culminated in a situation where a third of all COVID deaths in Australia have occurred in aged care homes. But we know that the government was warned. There is only one word to sum up this government's response, and it is neglect. It is neglect. They had a report entitled Neglect. They knew. They had warnings. And now they want to shirk responsibility. Well, it is very difficult for this government to shirk responsibility when they had warning after warning that this would happen. The warning bells were ringing in March, but the government wasn't listening. It is now September, and their inaction has been staggering. The other curious thing that is happening now is the aged care minister walks away from responsibility, shrugs off responsibility in this chamber. Those opposite have had to come to his defence, and in doing so, they've made one of the most illogical, circular arguments I think I've ever heard in this chamber. First of all, they say, we've listened to the best medical health advice about aged care failures and it's heaps worse in other countries, so we're doing okay. Then they say, actually, this is a result of community transmission in Victoria. They want to lay the blame on somebody else, on another government, on other people who are not responsible for aged care. Then they say Victoria needs a road out of lockdown. They say premiers need to stop making political decisions about borders. They say that premiers aren't listening to health advice and expert advice. Well, can I tell you, one of the reasons that people in other states are terrified about COVID-19 coming into their community is because this government is responsible for aged care, and they know that this government and this minister will not take care of them. So instead of trying to shrug the blame off to someone else, why don't you do your job?